Hi, folks. Tim Forshey here again. Well, let's go through a bit of a nightmare scenario and let's sort of flesh it out just a bit. Let's assume somebody just broke into your house a few minutes ago. Now there's smoke in the air, there's blood and feces and urine on your carpet, and thankfully, at least one of those fluids does not belong to you. 911 has been called, hopefully not by you, as we've discussed before, and help is now on its way. But it's several minutes away. You have at least rudimentary first aid skills, right? You've at least taken a stop the bleed class or two. If you haven't, stop this video right now and Google stop the bleed and sign up for your most available class immediately. I assume you've got at least a decent IFAC, an individual first aid kit, immediately available, correct? And since this is your home that we're in where this just happened, hopefully you have a much more extensive trauma kit easily available as well, right? There are a lot of aspects involved with the actual best way to answer this question. First of all, don't forget the only reason you were forced to shoot this person is because they made a direct threat to you and your family's lives, correct? Is that threat still ongoing? If they regain consciousness and gain control of your firearm, what happens then? A lot of EMTs and police officers call this what's known as the Jason effect, named after, of course, Jason Voorhees from the Friday the 13th series of movies. I think they're on Friday the 13th, 97 now. The stricken assailant goes down, their blood pressure plunges, they lose consciousness. Then, moments later, after their blood pressure stabilizes, at least temporarily, and then they suddenly sit up awake and alert, ready to resume their evil plan, whatever that was. What about their accomplices? You remember that about 80% of home invasion burglaries involve more than one bad guy, correct? Are you willing to bet you and your family's life on the bet that this wounded guy is the only guy? If you can make sure that you're 100% safe to render aid, should you? Still, should you? When you get covered in their blood and later find that they had a bloodborne fatal pathogen like HIV or hepatitis, and that you're now going to die a slow and painful death instead of a quick and painful death, how do you feel about your choice now? Ask your friend the cop or your friend's friend the cop whether they render aid at the scene of a shooting routinely as part of their job as a police officer. Guess what? The answer is they don't. The only case that I know of where the cops were ever criticized for not doing so was the famous North Hollywood shootout in 1997. You probably remember that case. Hundreds of rounds fired by two very heavily armored and armed bad guys at police officers. Thankfully, no fatalities, but a lot of people got wounded. The only two fatalities were the actual bad guys. So at least there was a happy ending there, I guess. But the second bad guy, whose name I won't mention, because as those of you who've tuned in before know, I think that's sort of a moral imperative for all of us not to make these people infamous, which was their goal in the first place. But the EMTs were not allowed access to the second guy who was wounded for over an hour after the shooting ended. And by the time they got to him, he had bled out. The Goblin's family filed a suit against LAPD for wrongful death, and a mistrial was declared when the jury ended up being hung on that particular case. Family then dropped their efforts after that. No police officers were prosecuted or disciplined by virtue of the fact that they did not allow EMTs access to this guy for over an hour. And in fact, 18 of those officers were given the Medal of Valor. And of the many failures that day which led to changes, the one that resulted in the main policy change across the whole country is that now all police officers, or nearly all police officers, are armed with semi-automatic rifles in their cruisers, which obviously they should be. I can't really imagine a scenario in which I would render aid in this situation, but your mileage may vary. If you choose to push onward with your assistance, God bless you, but know that you are not ever required to do so, despite what a lot of people might tell you. So it's an individual decision. Please err on the side of caution. Make sure that you and your family are safe. All right. Thanks for tuning in. Again, if you like what you see on the channel, please feel free to subscribe or like below. And in the meantime, as always, stay safe.